Today we're going to talk about roundups. Mark, what is a roundup?
Well, rather than just talking about a roundup, I'd rather show you with maybe two quick examples. Here on the screen, you'll see the 15 best burgers in Barcelona, brought to us by Barcelona Metropolitan, which is the English language city magazine for that city. And a roundup is a piece of content, of course, so it has a title and it has some copy, but the interesting part, the part that makes it a roundup, is what happens below that. So in this case, it's the 15 best burgers of Barcelona, so those are all here plotted on a map, and then they're further called out, in the image itself that's superimposed on top.
So it's really convenient that you can see where it all is.
Exactly, where it corresponds to where it is on the map, and also more detail about each location. So, for example, a photo, a title, and then descriptive information.
So is it kind of like a review or a collection of reviews?
Well, it can tie into review content, but roundups are really their own thing. With the next example, I'll go in a little bit more detail. This is Now Toronto and Alt Weekly for that city. They have here several roundups, actually, and this one is about the best bars for great food. And so you can see stylistically it's a little bit different. The images are a little bit smaller. That's all determined in CSS or by the template that you're selecting. But if I click, for example, on any one of these points, like for example, Bar Isabel, you'll see that there are also mentions. And these mentions can be connected to reviews or other roundups. So, for example, let's go see what else we got here.
So you can even read more about that location elsewhere on the site. So that's, wow.
Exactly. So, for example, here for 416 Bar, there's quite a lot of other mentions where this location shows up.
Place.
It's in Best for Great Food, which is where we are right now, but it's also one of Toronto's 25 hottest restaurants in 2014. So if I click on that, in this particular case, it takes me to another roundup, but as you said, it could have been a review as well. So a couple of takeaways here as it relates to roundups. Great user service, great way to serendipitously discover new content.
And reader engagement, so to say, that's also very important.
Yeah, and a really cool way to present information.
Well, I think it's an important point to maybe bring up is SEO, because that's something that's really important to get found on search engines, right? So I can imagine this gives a pretty good advantage to SEO for page ranking and the like, or?
Well, yes. In particular, when it comes to SEO, there's a couple of key criteria, and one of them is structured content. And we're creating structured content, in Metro Publisher when we're creating a location, when we're creating a review, when we're creating a roundup. Here, for example, on the screen, I have a Google search, and if I, let's say, Google best bars Toronto, we're going to see that in the regular Google results, this comes up as the top result.
Wow.
Now, I have to add a couple of things here. First of all, Google results are very contextual. They try to personalize them a little bit towards my interests and what they think is relevant to me, not always getting it right, frankly. But they try to do that as best they can. And then the other thing is that it can also depend on where I am in the world. When I do this search, it's currently coming up as the #1 result. The other thing to point out is that search engines are always tweaking the way that they return results.
That's right.
And that's a big part of actually what we do. Every couple of months we're rolling out new updates to the way that we support schemas, and there's all kinds of technical stuff that happens in the background, that most people don't have to worry about.
But all in all, the search results will vary slightly depending on your location where you're searching from.
If I do another search here, I'll do this one because I showed you Barcelona. Best burgers, Barcelona. So in this case, it's the number 2 result for the searches that I'm making. They tend to score really high on searches when they are properly created, when structured content is created, and you're simply following the on-screen prompts in Metro
Search
Publisher.
engines like that. So basically, roundups kind of feed the search engine stuff they like to see.
Yes, and in a way that the search engines understand what that content is, and they reward that. And there's also all kinds of other things that flow into where you score in Google, and that goes beyond the scope of what we can talk about here. But in other episodes, I'd like to show you how to make a roundup from scratch.
Okay, cool.
Maybe bring in one of my other colleagues to maybe show you a so-called tour example of a roundup.
So there's different types of roundups.
There's different types of roundups, and we're actually planning even more in the future. There's lots to see and do, but this is, I think, a good initial overview to what roundups are and how you can use them.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Mark.
My pleasure.